Okay, everyone, thank you. We're going to get started. If everyone could, the audience wise, we could get you guys on this slide. I'm told it looks more aesthetically pleasing by my sister. So yeah, if so you guys here, if you could just squish up to those over there. We'd appreciate it.
You made a kill so happy and then so sad.
As long as you're not on the computer, that's fine. Perfect. So yeah, hello everyone. Hope you're doing well. Hope you can ask yourselves. Yes, we are doing a live podcast again. Another lesson panel. Thank you to Sunset House and the BBR program for that. We will be discussing a bit more about that. And obviously, as I've mentioned to some of you external guests, the program is accepting applications. The deadline has been extended, so it's the 8th of December. So if you're interested in applying, the amazing thing is we have one of the parts on the program, Akil, here. So if you've got any questions about the program, you want to know more about the program,
ask Jeffrey.
You can ask me. Yeah, thank you very much for coming. And thank you to everyone who's watching online as well. As I mentioned, we're going to be doing a discussion about being a Black creative. So what exactly that means, discussing things around like burnout, and I've got two amazing guest speakers with me here today. As I always say, for anyone who's like an avid listener to or watcher, I should say as well, for the podcast, I don't like doing introductions to other people. The reason being is because I get to speak to amazing people through the podcast, but also I get to speak to amazing people through my job. And I think that I can never really truly explain the business or what people do as much as they do. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to our guest speakers. Could you please let us know? I'm going to start with you, Marlon. Okay. Please let us know who you are, what you do, and your business.
Cool. Hello, everyone. My name is Marlon. I am an entrepreneur. It means I go to different schools around London and the UK and help with things like behaviour management strategies, interventions, curriculum rebuilding. And this is because I had 17 years in education as an English teacher and as a leader of teams. So I started my business, one of my businesses in 2021, which is the education consultant. And as you do, I started another company exactly the same time, which is called Archer Series, which is a fashion brand. And we raise awareness for neurodiversity. And we give 20% of the profits back to individuals in London schools who don't have provision already in terms of SEN. So I'm dyslexic, we work with people with ADHD, autism, etc. That's one of my number one passions, is to raise awareness and just show people and businesses that you need to employ people, not just diversity in culture and race and gender, but also in the way we think. I think as a dyslexic, it's one of my creative superpowers. I love art in all forms, love music, love fashion. And yeah, that's kind of the mission, is to raise and raise that banner. And yeah, thank you, Jeffrey, for inviting me, number one, and thank you to Akil for the Black Business Incubator, for me to even be having this opportunity.
Hi, people online or in person. I feel like that was so obnoxious. I'm Lydia Renee Darling. You can call me Lynn. I'm your local pink-loving Wisconsinite. So I'm an actor-producer. I moved to the UK in 2021 to get my master's in writing for stage and broadcast media from the Royal Central School of Speech and Drama. I know it's a mouthful. It feels pretentious every time I say it. But I started my production company, which is, oh my gosh, Creative Co. in 2021 because I moved here, had to start a master's degree alone in a new country, lost my job on my first day here. So I was like, well, no better time to go freelance, I suppose. So we do DEI advocacy, which is diversity, equity, and inclusion, for those who maybe don't know that acronym or have heard of this EDI in the UK. So we do a lot of like professional development through a podcast and a magazine we have coming out, which is all marginalized people in the industry being interviewed about their experiences, giving advice. We're going to have some workshops coming up in Somerset House in February, which is really exciting. And then on the production side, we do docu-series, digital series, and like I mentioned, the podcast. We just got our first grant for a travel docu-series. And we're going to be covering the standards effect on marginalized people in Western countries, which is something that I always wanted to see covered, but hadn't seen that gap filled. So that's kind of what I do, is fill those gaps. So yeah.
Thank you very much. So yeah, we're going to get started with the first question, which is, how did you discover your passion for entrepreneurship and creativity? Because I think, yeah, I'll let you guys say yours first, and I'll say mine. But I think the funny thing with being an entrepreneur, being a creative in general, is it can either start from two things. It can either be kind of like what we just said, you know, something terrible happens, and you're just like, well, I've got to figure out something. Or it can be the alternative, where it's, you know, like you're having such a good time, you look out in the market and you see, well, actually, nothing like this exists. So you're just like, well, I'll give it a try. So we're going to start with this question. How did you discover your passion for entrepreneurship and creativity?
So I'll break it down into entrepreneurship one bucket and then creative life the other bucket. But I kind of wanted to start a business since like 13 years old. And originally I wanted it to be a record label because I had a conservatory degree in musical theater. I with the idea of like bringing modern girl groups and musical theater together. I like created this business plan in like university and brought it to like one of my lecturers to give me feedback on it. And I was like, something about it didn't feel quite right. And so I realized I didn't want to end up creating, you know, another record label, but I still had a passion for business. So I ended up studying abroad in Vienna. I took a course in entrepreneurship and small business management. And I felt like there was still something there. I just didn't know quite what it is. And then I kind of like Jeffrey said, my mom was obsessed with musicals growing up. And my dad, he's obsessed with like opera and would play Pirates of Penzance in the car. So they say they don't know how I got it, but it was always kind of there in the background. And then my former stepdad was an artist, and he taught me how to sketch, and so I always knew like I wanted to do some sort of until I got older and started like training programs for acting and kind of found that bed. So that was how I came into both of those buckets over time.
Remind me of the question. Sorry, because dyslexia kicks in sometimes.
How did you discover your passion for entrepreneurship and creativity?
Yeah, I mean, I've probably been creative or consciously creative since 13. So what I used to do when I was younger is, before I discovered music, like I'm a hip hop baby, but before I got to that, at 13, it was all about like cartoons, illustration, drawing. So I basically Saturday morning drawing characters. That was my thing. Sketches in a box somewhere. And then yeah, when I was getting older in secondary school, we had a music department. And there was a man who some of you may know, may not know, but he went by the name of Sway DeSafo. He had a very, very big run in the UK as a hip hop rapper. And we basically connected with, we just stayed in the music room. So I was developing my musical creativity, making music, writing lyrics. And then from there, my auntie was always in design. So she's always like creating wedding dresses and the weird thing about my family, probably I don't know if anyone else has had this experience, but I'm old enough to know when the first camcorder came out. And my auntie had the camcorder and we would just film we'd film Sunday dinner. The camera would be just there, it would just film us eating. But then we got a bit more creative and my auntie would like make me and my sister wear some of the stuff she was wearing. Be like 4 times too big for us. But there's video footage of me doing a catwalk at about, I don't know, 13 in my auntie's gear, which will never see the light of day. Hopefully. I think my mum got it converted onto DVD, so possibly it could come out. Hopefully not. Anyway, and then yeah, so this is all subconscious. So I'm having all this grounded in creativity and growing up in North London. And yeah, I mean, by the time I got to college, university even, it was just about making money. So I didn't really think about any of the things I was working on that earn me any money. I just wanted to work, so I had numerous jobs, which I won't bore you about. There was one in particular. I was a barber, so I used to cut hair. So that's, I guess, some creativity. And then I was cutting hair for 2 years, and then my boss said that I should move on to women's hair. No formal training, and it was a Saturday afternoon, and this woman wanted some highlights, and in theory I knew what to do. And I put the cap on her head and applied the dye, left her under the dryer, and then when I took the cap off, there was a big blob of dye on the top because the actual cap had a slit, and I didn't check it, so the dye had seeped through. Anyway, so I was a hairdresser for 1 day, and then yeah, loads of different types of jobs. And then I guess in terms of what I would call my calling, I was at a family party, and my cousin was already a teacher, and she said I should study to be a teacher. And I said, why? Why would I do that? She said, you get paid. I was like, okay, cool, I'll sign up. And that was really it. I didn't actually know I wanted to get into education. And then through the years, just developed my skills, and 17 years later, I could find their dreams earlier than I did. So I think that answers the question. I hope, kind of.
Thank you so much. And yeah, I won't go into too much detail about my own sort of like creative journey, but yeah, I think like you said, my family plays a huge part for it. So those who don't know, I'm Nigerian, so that has it has many connotations. But one of the good ones that it does have is we're known for being very like creative and like entrepreneurial, and we want to get out there, we want to start things. So as a family, like we are very entrepreneurial. My sister does a clothing brand. She does a clothing brand called Omanera Designs, which highlights sort of this idea for like African and specifically Nigerian clothes that she sort of made from recycled clothing. But she also started this healthcare app, which is all about supporting mothers of colour essentially with their birthing journey. Because there was a report, I think it was Birthrights. She's not looking, but I'm praying I said it was Birthrights, right? They did the report about it was Birthrights. Basically, the report basically said that black mothers are 4 times more likely to essentially die during childbirth than their white counterparts, and mothers of colour, so either mothers that are mixed or mothers of Asian heritage, were 2 times more likely to die. So my sister started this healthcare app all about that. My brother, big into music, so he started his own independent record label all the way back in 2017, 2014, if I got that right. But he's very passionate about music and supporting like artists and showing that they know like what they can do. So when you're sort of surrounded by like all these people, like my dad's got stuff he does in Nigeria, my mum's has started businesses, my other sister does a lot of art. So when you're surrounded by all these people, you're just like, yeah, got to bring something to the table. So that sort of like encouraged it. But also a lot of people get surprised when I tell them like I did GCSE for A levels and I did drama for GCSE and A levels. So for me, getting in that space of like creativity, like you can have a script, but you can sort of say one line so many different ways, and that changes the dynamic of the story. It was really fun. I'm not really big on acting like serious, like melodrama, like thriller, horror. Like I love comedy. So for me, improvisation, all of this stuff was really cool. But yeah, just being surrounded in that space just was really nice, and is one of the reasons why I became creative and set off something like this. We're gonna go on to the next question. And I think it'll be very important to discuss this because obviously we've spoken about like all the stuff we do. Obviously, some people might know about the podcast, and I can get into sort of where that came from later on. But essentially, I think one thing all 3 of us, maybe everyone in the room, can attest to is the idea of burnout. You're working on your entrepreneurial projects, you're working on your creative project, and you're just like, wow, this is going great. And then you realize the late nights start settling in, whether you're applying for like 3, like you said, you're applying for grants, maybe you've got 3 grants due the same week, and they're all asking different questions. Maybe you've got like 3 different pitches to investors. And especially as we mentioned, like sometimes as entrepreneurs, like you need that money for either yourself to literally live, or you need it for your business. So I'd like to ask, navigating in sort of both of those spaces, how do you manage? I think prevent burnout is probably like a stretch, because obviously like you can try as much as you want to prevent it, but it will happen. But I think, how do you manage it? How do you ensure that as a entrepreneur, as a creative person, you, when you do feel burnout or you've got signs of burnout, you're just like, okay, I need to start doing these things to look after my health.
Oh my God. We just don't have enough time. So I need some help, people. I have 22 tabs open currently. There are 22 tabs on my laptop. And every time I want to like X one off, I'm like, no, but I'm working on that. Go keep that one. And yeah, I'll keep that document because I can copy and paste that and put it in this app. It's mad. Like there's so many tabs that I feel like it's almost like a digital representation of what's going on in my head. There's so much things I'm working on. And so many people I'm responsible for. So that's the other thing. So in the work I do, I manage a project, essentially a Saturday project called Upward Bound. It's on a Saturday, so Saturday school. And I recently inherited this role, so I'm now managing the whole project that has 42 members of staff that I'm doing one-to-ones with currently, and 200 kids on the cohort. So that's kind of taken up a lot of my mind. And then my business is obviously the work I do in schools as a consultant and in the fashion brand, trying to kind of get that off the ground. So my mind is always moving, and it's very hard to shut any of those down, because I feel like if I shut any of those down, you're just going to be on the back foot. But to get back to the how do you avoid the burnout, I mean, I've crashed out too many times. I think since I started these brands or these companies in 2021, I can remember having at least 3 burnout moments where my mind still wanted to go, but my body was like, no, it's over, and just crashed. I think I slept for like 20 hours. It was one day I slept for 20 hours. And then there's another way of crashing, which is quite gradual. You're on the train or the bus, thankfully not driving, but falling asleep, like at random moments, falling asleep in meetings, falling asleep on a Zoom, never nice, and someone saying wake up because it's your turn to speak. Like all of these things are happening in real time, and I'm like, okay, it's not sustainable, but which plate do I stop juggling? Because either one of those, if I stop, is going to crash. So I think going back to that whole thing about having 24 tabs, I think something that I'm now doing is saying, okay, what happens if I X that tab? Is the world going to end? And when I X'd it, no, the world is still here, cool. And then I X'd another one, answer the same question. So I think for me, it's actually saying some of the things going on, but to let go is actually.
So I'll be completely transparent. I'm a very human being. Like I have a million spreadsheets. I have like 10 different Notion templates. I use one tab so that when I'm opening like 25 tabs of things I have to submit to, I can pull some. Always kind of got the origin of that is my mom. I was talking to her a couple, months ago, and I was kind of like, when did you notice that tendency? And she was like, I think you've kind of always been that personality. But then I went to drama school, and I would have like ballet at like 7 a.m. Then you have your private voice lesson. You have like 15 minutes for lunch maybe. Then you're doing your whole conservatory block from 1 to 5:30 of like movement, more dance, more acting. Then you have rehearsals, and that's before you even get to your homework, and you're not going until like 1 a.m. And then you have your shows on the weekend. And I remember, you talked about specific points of burnout. My final year of school, I was doing a professional show with a theater that was like attached to our drama school. And I had to do 2 matinees. So there was like a student matinee, a regular matinee, our classes in the morning, our classes during the day, and then I had an evening show. And I remember sitting down in this chair, and when I